Hi everyone, Sam here. Welcome to another Azure Snippets. Today we're going to have a look at a tool which not many people seem to be actually familiar with, but it's a really useful tool if you're either working with ARM templates or trying to work with the ARM API. It's a tool called Resource Explorer. So it's from Microsoft. It's at resources.azure.com. It's in preview, but it's a pretty useful tool because what it lets you do is explore your resources in Azure using the ARM API. I find it really useful if I'm trying to write an ARM template with a resource that I'm not entirely sure on how it should be configured or the properties that are needed. Because what you can do with the Resource Explorer is look at a resource that's already deployed, so maybe you deployed it through the portal or PowerShell or so on, and you can see the properties of that through here and see what you need to do to actually deploy it. So let's have a look and see how that works. It'll make more sense. So when you come into the Resource Explorer, it defaults to this look we've got here. You can select the tenant you're interested in, so we're going to use this one. And then down the left, we've got a tree view that will show us our different resources. So if we expand subscriptions, we can then see our individual subscriptions. Expand that. And then we can then see things by resource group. So if we expand that, we can see our individual resource groups. Okay, so we're going to have a look at this AKS resource group. Let's see if we can find the AKS ARM resource and see what properties that actually takes. So if we expand providers, let's make that a bit bigger. You can see under here we've got the individual resources we're deploying. So we are looking at container service and manage clusters, and then we can see here we've got my AKS cluster. So if we click on that, what we get on the right hand side here now is the configuration of that cluster in ARM template syntax. So we're able to go and have a look through the settings in here and determine what properties are actually going to be available when we deploy that type of resource using an ARM template. If you've got sub-resources, like for example here you've got access profiles, we can click on that, and there's nothing in either of these because they're not used at the moment. But yeah, so we can look at the upgrade profile, and that just tells me some more information about the upgrade profile of my cluster. But you can see there, we can see very easily what properties are available when we're using an ARM template to build container service. And we can do the same thing as for container registry. So we've got a registry here, and we can see what's available for that particular registry. But as well as being able to view the ARM template, we can actually do a few more things in here. So firstly, I can click this edit button, and I can actually come in here and edit the settings. Now I can only do this for settings that allow me to edit. So some things like changing the name of the cluster aren't going to be allowed, or the name of the registry even here aren't going to be allowed after it's deployed. So if I try and do that, it will error. And actually all that's happening is when I make a change like that, I'm sending a request to the ARM API. So this is the URL that the ARM API sits at for this. So I'll be sending either a put or a pat request, depending on what I'm trying to do, to this ARM API, which is for my specific registry, and then sending a JSON body of my settings. And this is exactly the same thing you do if you're talking directly to the ARM API, or if you're running an ARM template, that's what happens behind the scene. And the same as when you're running PowerShell. Ultimately, everything is talking to the ARM API. So we can use this tool to actually directly talk to the ARM API. Another thing we can also do is if we click on here on the PowerShell tab, we can get the PowerShell commands that will work with that item. So if you're not sure of what commands you need to use for a particular resource, you can actually just come in here and click on that, and it will show you the PowerShell commands. And not only that, if you're using Ansible, it will also show you some playbooks that will do those tasks as well. So it's a really useful tool if you're trying to figure out how to work with something, be it ARM template, PowerShell, Ansible. No CLI yet, unfortunately. And also you can actually get the documentation for the actual ARM requests. And you can see the options available if you're calling the ARM API as well. So it's a really useful tool to get that information. It's also really useful if you just want to try out some things. So if you are trying to work with the ARM API directly, so maybe you're using it in PowerShell or in C# or something, and you want to understand what the command you need to run is to delete the registry, and you want to try it out and make sure it's working without writing any code, you can do that through the Resource Explorer. You'll notice at the top here there is a read-only and a read-write setting. At the minute it's set to read-only, so if I tried to run this delete command it wouldn't actually work. I'd have to switch over to read-write to do that. It's a bit of a safety precaution. You've also got the option to search, so if you're looking for a specific resource, you can search for it through here. You'll remember before we went through the subscriptions section, that showed us our resources underneath those subscriptions. If we're just interested in the API here and not actually want to look at a particular resource, I just want to see what's available in the API, if I go into providers, I can actually look now under here and look under available web and look at operations. And I can see here the operations that I can undertake on the Microsoft.web part of the ARM API. Obviously there's an awful lot in here because this encompasses all of the things underneath Microsoft.web. So that's server farms, web application plans, functions, all of those things. But if you're looking to explore a particular resource and figure out what you can do with the API, that's also really useful. So if you're new to Azure or new to writing ARM templates and you really want to figure out how they work and play about with the underlying API, or just figure out what properties you need for a particular resource you're trying to deploy, then maybe the documentation isn't giving you what you need, this is a really useful tool to allow you to do that. You can go in here and get the information you need quickly and easily. In my view, it's a lot easier to use than using the option in the portal to export the ARM data, because that's pretty prone to problems, particularly if you have a lot of resources in your subscription. This Resource Explorer allows you to focus in directly on the thing you're interested in and ignore everything else, which is really, really helpful. So that's all there is. It's not a terribly complicated tool, but it's one I've found really useful over the years. And not many people seem to know that much about it. So hopefully this information will help you if you get stuck with building an ARM template and need to go and figure out what it's doing, or you want to start working with the ARM API. Hopefully you found that useful. I'll see you next time on Azure Snippets.